everyone, it's Cheney from Not Your Mama's History, and today I'm going to do a most requested video. I'm going to be doing my recommended African American slavery books for children and teens. Alright, to start, top on my list is Henry's Freedom Box. And this is Henry's Freedom Box, a true story from the Underground Railroad by Levine. And it is a really good book. It's recommended from preschool to third. I have had some people say they recommend second to fifth. But for preschool, I think that it's a good story time book. So if you're reading to the children, this is a really good book. It's pretty light. I think that it's a good way to introduce children into slavery as you start getting questions about Henry. Why doesn't he get to see his mother again? Why, when he's older, why doesn't he ever see his wife and children again? And then there are some funny parts, such as when he is shipped north in the box, he's like tumbled around, and I always get a few laughs from preschool kids. It's a really good light book. I think that you could also kind of, I hate to say this, but dumb it down a bit for younger children and make it age appropriate, and it's not as pushed in your face as some books are. And I think it's a really good soft introductory to slavery. So this I would recommend preschool to third, and for reading, to have kids start reading second to fifth. I think this is a good book for them, picture book for them to read. Next book is If You Lived When There Was Slavery in America, and this is by Kamma. This is actually from a series of books, and it's called If You, and I think there's one if you lived during the Civil War, if you lived during the Revolutionary War, and it kind of just goes through topic by topic, a day in the life. It's really cool, and it just goes through everything you would like to know for your kids to know about slavery. And it's recommended second to fifth grade, and I think that this is pretty accurate. Sometimes when they recommend age groupings, I question it sometimes, but this one I think it's spot on. Here are some of the questions that they pose. How do you know what it was like to be a slave? Were all slaves brought over from Africa? Where did American slaves live? What was the cabin in the quarters like? Would you go to school? Did some owners teach their slaves to read? And it's just lots and lots of questions. And most of these books kind of follow the same format. And I think that it's really a good introductory book. So this is a must-have for any parent that is trying to introduce their child to American slavery. One of my favorites: were any black people free? How could you become free? What was the first thing you'd say on Christmas Day? And I think these are just, please pick up this book. It's really good. And then next is Nettie's Trip South by Ann Turner, and this is for grade 4th through 6th. I really love this book. The illustrations are really good. I have some stuff in here. And I think that this is a really good book because it's seen from the point of view of an outsider from the South. So it really answers questions that you may have or your child may have when going to the South during slavery. And I think it was just a really good book. It follows, I forgot her name. Yeah, obviously. Nettie writes in her journal, and this is basically her journal about her trip from Albany, New York to Richmond, Virginia, and what she sees. She's actually very shocked by most people are who didn't grow up around slavery. Most Northerners, first time seeing it was very shocking to them, and you kind of get that feel from this book. Again, another good book, Nettie's Trip South by Ann Turner, grade 4th through 6th. And then I really wanted a really good middle school book. This is To Be a Slave, and it's by Julius Lester. This is one of my favorites. Whenever I go to a middle school, I absolutely leave a copy of this. Almost every middle school I've ever been to, I leave a copy of this in their library. This is actually a new copy because I gave away my old copy. And this tells the story of slavery from the perspective of the slaves. And the author kind of starts his narrative of how when he was 10 years old, he found out that he could not trace his family history beyond a bill of sale. And that's it. His family tree ended in a bill of sale, and so he goes on this journey to find out about slaves. And so he breaks up the book into sections, the auction block, and in each section there are primary sources straight from the mouths of slaves, how it was to be on the auction block, how was it to see family members being sold or other slaves being sold, and then the plantation, resistance to slavery. And I think that this one is very good. Not only does it's a good introductory for middle school students into slavery, it's also a really good book for them to start familiarizing themselves with primary resources. So I use this book just purely to help kids, to help middle schoolers get started in researching, and what to look for in their research and how to categorize research when they put it together. And I think that this is a really good book for that. So not just a book to delve into slavery, but also to kind of get them ready for high school. I think that it's a wonderful book. So To Be a Slave by Julius Lester, and it also is a Newbery Honor book. It's won a few awards. You've probably read it. I don't know. I'm told that most children have read this book in school, but I'm not sure because I didn't read this book in school. My mom got it for me. And then lastly, I do not have my copy because I gave away my copy again. You'll notice that that's a theme of mine. I end up giving away these copies to parents who have children or to cousins. I have a big family, so I always end up giving them away. So I'm constantly rebuying. But right now I'm in between having this, so I'll put up a picture of the book. It is Copper Sun by Sharon. I'll put up her name. I do know her first name is Sharon. And this book is for teens. It is so good. And it's a very impactful book. It is a fictionalized tale of Amari, a 15-year-old Ashanti girl, and it follows her from when she is taken in her village and brought over over the Middle Passage, and it really goes through what a horrific voyage it was for her. And then when she is bought by a plantation owner who buys her for his, I think his son, 16-year-old son's birthday present. And she's bought for that purpose. And then she runs into Polly, an indentured servant. This is one reason why I really love this book, because she becomes, they become friends eventually. They have a very interesting relationship. I love that dynamic of Polly and Amari. So you get an indentured servant and a slave, and the differences in their lives. It's so good. And then some things that you will come across, just warning, the Middle Passage, which is very graphic. It includes a rape scene, branding, and escapes. All these are very well documented. Yes, it is a fictionalized tale, but the research is very much sound. They didn't just pull this story out of the air. It's a culmination of multiple stories, and it's a really good book. So Copper Sun, and that's for teens. So I think that this is a good starting. This is a good starting point for parents trying to to introduce their children into slavery. I don't think that I would introduce them in depth before second grade. I know a lot of parents are, I think that you're the parent, and it is up to you to decide when to introduce your children to slavery. I think that you should introduce your children to history, but the real graphic parts of slavery, I think that I wouldn't go into much detail before second grade, because they can really start to grasp what's going on and ask these important questions. So, but I think that's why I recommended Henry's Freedom Box for before second grade for preschool, because I think it's really good story, and I think they'll get a little chuckles, and they'll ask important questions. Why is Henry's mommy gone? I hope this was very helpful to you guys. If you have any questions or more or even suggestions for further reading, this is my first round of these. I'm going to try to do them every 3 months, come up with a whole new set of books for each age grouping. So please let me know what you think. Remember to like us and subscribe.